Well, good evening, everybody. It's good to see you're here tonight. I hope you've enjoyed today. Where I am, it's a beautiful evening. Not too hot, but really nice. So thanks for coming along this evening. Format, I guess. Well, we'll sit for the first 25 minutes or so, and then take a little break, and then sit again. Have some time for questions and discussion, and maybe things end by 8 o'clock, something like that. But that's up to you. That's up to you. When we get to kind of question time at the end, everybody will be unmuted if that's what you like, so you can ask questions in the normal way. In the meantime, do feel free to send something through by chat. And I've got my one eye on the chat box, and Lavinia, who's kindly managing the show this evening, is looking as well. So please feel free to send a chat message through. Now, the first thing is, I'm just hoping that you can hear me okay. I have a bit of a frog in my throat, and I'm not going to talk too much because I'm coughing a lot. So there. So now you know. If I suddenly appear to mute myself, there's a reason for it. I don't want to disturb you. So okay. I'm assuming. I mean, I just recognise quite a few names, and it's good to see regular folks here. I'm sure there are some other names that I haven't seen before. That's great. How are we doing? And what I'll do, as I say, I'll give a bit, but only a bit of guidance actually this evening, simply because I don't want to cough all night. Oh, and by the way, when we get to the break, at whatever 7, whatever about that, if there's any a real question you really want me to deal with sooner rather than later, because it might be affecting the rest of your evening here at the Buddhist Society, do please make sure you send it through. And thank you very much. So Meg has kindly thanked me, and she's got to go after the first sitting. As it's your birthday, happy birthday, Meg. Great stuff. So you're aging, old age, sickness. I'm sick. Right. I just want to start with a bit of background to all of this mindfulness practice. Whatever tradition, and that's the other thing, if you can't hear me clearly, please send a chat through, and I'll try and, turn up the volume a bit at my end. Whatever tradition you're practicing in, and pretty much whatever you've read about Buddhism, they talk about the mind and the contents of the mind, the mind and the contents of the mind. And please bear that in mind. The contents of the mind are everything we experience through our senses. So all our thoughts and physical sensations, smells, and sounds, and on and on. And on the world of our senses, it's all mediated through the mind, isn't it? You know, all these funny games they have where you can go online and you can see a picture of something, and some people say it's blue and green, and the other people say it's different colors. But because everything's mediated through the mind. And that's the contents of the mind, the world of our senses. All our likes, our dislikes, our preferences, our past, our future, our story, they're all in the mind. And they're all transitory. They all come and they go. And that, if you want to know what samsara is, or dependent origination is, it's all that action, the contents of the mind. But the contents of the mind is what we really kind of relate to, positively or negatively. We want more, we want less. That's all stuff in the mind. Our preferences, desires, hates, all that stuff. It appears in the mind. But what about the mind itself? About the mind itself? The mind itself encompasses all of this stuff. It holds all of it. It holds all these contents, whatever they are. And the mind itself knows. It has a knowing quality. A knowing quality. Yes, there's a feeling. Gosh, there's a memory. There's a bit of a worry. Out of the window where I'm sitting, there's blue sky and trees. All of that, there's room for that in the mind. The mind is very spacious. And it's aware. It's open to all contents. And it's unlimited. It's unlimited. So when someone can now think about having seen pictures online or whatever of the furthest corners of the universe just after the Big Bang, if there was one, it can that becomes part of the contents of the mind. Everything then from the distant past in the universe to what? To the thought, what am I doing after the class is over? All manifests in the mind. But the thing about the mind is, in itself, it's aware, it has this knowing quality, but it's empty. The basic quality of the mind is empty. And when you get into reading about Buddhism and hearing talks, make a big deal about emptiness. What do you mean by emptiness? Well, all sorts of things, but I suggest that one very important aspect of emptiness is this quality of the mind itself. In itself, it's empty, but it can handle, it can manage, it can encompass everything we put into it, all the contents of the mind we want to put in, the mind will hold it. The mind is vast, but it's empty. And what's that, got to do with meditation tonight? Well, in mindfulness meditation, what we're doing, one of the things we're doing is learning to, if you like, redirect attachments, redirect our desires and aversions away from the contents of the mind and see that they're there, but let go of them. Because they're transitory, they're impermanent. And, it's like they're unsatisfactory. To see them all as dukkha, anicca, anatta, right? Unsatisfactory, impermanent, and empty of self, right? And instead take refuge in the knowing quality of the mind, right here, right now. Right here, right now. It's a shift. It's kind of like a shift in emphasis from dwelling in samsara, clinging on to samsara, pushing away from samsara, and letting go of all of that, and learning to take refuge in the spacious emptiness of the mind. That's what we're going to do tonight. So just remember that. Just remember that. Because we're going to do just basic mindfulness practice. And I'm assuming that most of us have been doing a bit of meditation before. So you'll excuse me if I don't say nearly as much as I usually do. So compose ourselves in a posture that's comfortable posture, but an alert posture. We want to know what's going on. We want to know what's going on. And we don't want to nod off. An alert posture. But no stress. No stress. Not rigid like a guardsman or something like that. No. A relaxed, alert, probably upright posture. How's the body feel? Check out sensations in the body. Why don't we spend just a moment or two letting the attention run through the body? And you'll notice, can't miss them. Big sensations, feeling of sitting, for example, or feet on the floor, or legs on the floor, if we're sitting on the floor. Okay. All the way through to noticing things we wouldn't normally notice because we judge them to be insignificant. The little itch on the top of one's head. Sensations in the index finger of the right hand. But big feelings. If there's a lot of discomfort, just notice that. This is what having a body is like. It can feel quite pleasant and relaxed and at ease. It can feel pretty sore and stiff. Just be observed. We're the observer now. We're taking refuge in knowing. And then we just notice the tendency to make a judgment. Don't like that. Want a bit more of this. Just sweeping the attention through the body, please. Checking it out. How does it feel? Just the sensations in the body. And there's no kind of good or bad about that. We might want to adjust the posture when we notice it's not quite right, but that's okay. Alert, relaxed posture. And just use this body scan. If we've noticed there's a bit of tension in the body, oh yeah, shoulders are a bit tense. Just relax, breathe out, let go. I don't really mind if people use mindfulness, this sort of practice, as a relaxation aid. There's much more to it. This relaxing. Relaxation is a means to an end, actually, in this practice. It's the physical manifestation of letting go of tension. Whew. Check out the body. Soles of the feet. Top of the head. Weight of the body sitting. Hips, pelvis, sides of the trunk of the body, the back, the spine, front of the body. Notice the breath. Arms, hands, just park them somewhere, out of the way. They're touching something, or they're feeling something. They're a bit clammy perhaps tonight. And then the neck, the face, and the head. Saliva in the mouth, breath on the nostrils. Eyelids touching. Any other sensations? Top of the head. So that's how the body feels. No opinions about it. That's the way the body feels tonight, right now. Developing this quality of knowing how things are right here, right now. And then same thing for the mood. How's the mood tonight? And then again, it's just whatever it is, actually. Bright, cheerful, or a bit fed up and dog-tired. Just notice that. You can practice, with any mood at all. Some moods are perhaps more conducive to this practice than others. It's always great to be sort of expansive and at ease and at peace with the world. You might learn much more from practicing with a mind which was pretty fed up or feeling rather angry with stuff that's just happened. Notice that. What's that like? You know what I just said? What's that like? Not why is it there, but what's that like that? There's sort of a journey of study and investigation. What's that like? Oh, how interesting. It's dull tonight, isn't it? How's the mood? Light or dark or bright? Uptight or easy and relaxed? How is it? This is a noticing and knowing practice. We're taking refuge in this quality of the mind to know. Noticing and letting go. this practice can be quite tranquilizing. We could do this practice not just to physically relax, but to get a bit of peace of mind. So there are many helpful meditation objects because the mind is inclined to run all over the place. The attention wanders, and it's just natural too. But it's very exhausting. Could be fun, but it's exhausting. Playing around in samsara can be rather tiring. Conditions come and go in samsara. So why not use your favorite meditation object as a little anchor, a friendly anchor, a place to return the attention to. And it can be the breath, or whatever else you use, a mantra, sound of silence. Everybody who's been doing this for a while got a little meditation object. And that's the home, that's the base. It's another sensation, actually. There's nothing particularly magical or mystical about it. Breathe in, breathe out. In breath, out breath. Around the nostrils, around the belly, rising, falling. Tuning into the feeling of the breath. And the anchor stops the boat from bobbing off too far. The meditation object helps the attention not to wander too far. Because the attention will wander. The monkey mind is working away over time, most of the time. And we're aware of that. We notice that. In a friendly kind of, oh, there we go again sort of way. It's not that we shouldn't. It just happens. We notice that and gently sort of intercept it. And before the attention wanders too far, one thought leads to another thought. Click, click, click. To what happened earlier today, what we're going to do tomorrow. Notice what's going on and let go and point the attention back to the breath. Very deliberately. It's a deliberate training practice. Point the attention back to the breath. In breath. Breath. Calming, peaceful, always there. Tranquilizing, but not stimulating. So we've got to make a bit of an effort because the monkey likes stimulus. And when the attention wanders, we notice that. Let go of where it's gone. Point the attention back to the next in-breath, the next out-breath. You might note some sensations in the body, anything from feeling pretty uncomfortable sitting on the floor, for example, to yeah, it's pretty hot and sticky here. And notice the reaction to these sensations. And if there's a lot of discomfort, and check out the difference between the actual discomfort, the pain, and the not wanting it to be there. When you've done that, change your posture, adjust the posture. That's quite okay. Just do it in this rather reflective sort of way, rather than reactive. Reflect. Time I should move. And we get interested in the rhythm of the breath. Is it long? Is it short? Deep? Shallow? It'll change. Notice the beginning of an in-breath, its end, the beginning of an out-breath, its end. Just appreciating the full rhythm of breathing. Take a little break if you like to. Stretch, stand up. So the summer break is coming up. The Buddhist Society stops teaching. Well, apart from the excuse me, apart from the annual summer school, but the sort of weekly classes and so on stop and resume again early September. And this class, the basic meditation class, meets for the last time next week. And I'm pleased to say Ajahn Barry will be there, here, will be here. So that'll be nice. Well, the summer break is coming up, so I'd like to say a few words about how do we keep things going in that long haul between rest of July and August into September, where there's no class. I know some of you like coming to the class because it's just group practice, and that ain't going to happen for quite a few weeks. The most obvious thing I want to say, the most obvious thing is just keep doing this formal practice as we've been doing here. Just do it. You really don't need to be in a group. I think it's great that we all get together on a Thursday evening, but heavens, we have to do it that way. Just do it ourselves. Just do this basic meditation practice in a regular way. The analogy is exactly with like sport, or although my big regret is never having learned a musical instrument. Practice. In sport, often one's working on regular practice, building up muscle. And here, if you like, we're building up the muscle of awareness. And that's regular repetition. Just do it. And practice the noticing and letting go formally, just like this. And don't get stuck in all this business about how long, when should I do it, what technique should I use. Just get on and do it. Anything is better than nothing. An hour is better than a minute, but maybe an hour is not feasible. Everybody has to be their own teacher, don't they? Experiment, try it out. But above all, do it. Just do it. And as we do it, and don't forget, I'm trying to sort of encourage us to think in terms of the difference between the mind, or the interaction of the mind and the contents of the mind. Notice, as we do this practice, be aware, notice when there is no sight, no sound, no physical sensation, no smells, no taste, and no thought. Notice the gaps in thinking, for example. The great lie, I think, is that we tell ourselves we always think. Well, we don't always think. I mean, often one thought runs from another thought. But we don't always think. We notice when the mind is not thinking. We don't have to then think, oh, thinking stopped, because that's another thought. Just be aware of these gaps. And the same thing when I mentioned this when we're scanning the body. Bring the attention to the top of the head. Any sensation there at all? Maybe not. Listening to sounds. Can't actually hear anything at the moment. Nothing to hear. Notice that. And then when we're doing that, we're sort of relaxing into this knowing quality of the mind. And another good thing to do is to appreciate the benefits we get out of doing this practice. Why are we doing it? That's a good question. Why on earth are we doing this? Particularly those of us who've been doing it for quite a while. Well, the mind becomes a bit more stable, a bit more tranquil. And that, I find that very enjoyable. I think a peaceful mind, a relaxed mind is delightful. And I want to do it. One of the reasons I do meditation because I find it enjoyable. That's like this, without getting into all this stuff about samatha vipassana. That's the samatha side of this practice, the calming, tranquilizing aspect of this meditation practice. And with something like the breath, got the perfect vehicle for developing this kind of calmness. So keep doing a regular formal practice. But then we can sort of keep it going outside of practice in our everyday lives. Daily life practice, whatever that means. So here are a few tips. I'm sure other folks here have got some others, but here are a few tips that came to mind when I was thinking about this class. Things to do to help this practice of, if you like, noticing and letting go. Just slow down a bit. I mean, we can't always slow down a bit. Just take it a bit easier. Slow down. And if you like to do sort of formal things, and you can do this, just when you're not inconveniencing other people, just eat a bit more slowly and experience the different kind of flavors. Another thing that's very helpful is to avoid multitasking. Now, there again, there's a time and a place for perhaps doing this. We're juggling all these balls and keeping them in the air. But that's difficult and stressful. Try, if we can, to do one thing at a time. We're developing this quality of noticing. There we go. So avoid one. And then a very good thing to do, a very insightful thing to do, is to get to know our habits. Not in a judgmental way. Our autopilot, our dependent origination, and the way we relate to the world, the way we react to people, situations. And on the whole, non-judgment, not don't be judgmental about it. Now, if our reaction is one of violence, don't do it. It's as simple as that. But on the whole, just be aware of how we're programmed, of our autopilot. Oh, that's what it's all about. Okay. That's interesting. It's like that. This is the way we're set up. As a whole bunch of habits. Yeah, that's interesting. And then, use everyday events, everyday experience to learn a bit about all this stuff. So, not I'm angry or anxious. Anger takes over. Anxiety just paralyzes us, perhaps. Okay? But there's a different approach to that. It's like, there is anger, there is anxiety. Just notice that. And in particular, what does it feel like in the guts, in the shoulder, in the body temperature? It feels like this. You notice one sort of gradually detaching ourselves from what's going on in the head a little bit. And I mean, just speaking from immediate experience, supposing you happen to be suffering from a sore throat and a cough and zero energy, you just notice that, and you notice the absolutely instinctive reaction to just not wanting it, and see if we can just let go of that, and then notice this business about the open expansiveness of the mind. But at the same time, as the cold, lethargy, and dirt, and coughing, and all the rest of it, then out of my window, there's a beautiful tree, a couple of beautiful trees, and the houses opposite, looking up into the sky and appreciating the vastness of the sky. A few miles away, there's a little plane flying over the head. In those moments, what's happened to the cough, the cold, whatever it happens to be. Just notice that. There's a lot more. The mind is very open. The mind is very open and expansive. And we have this tendency to lock onto some contents of the mind. There are plenty of other contents of the mind, and then there's the mind itself. So do please experiment in this way over the summer months. Formal practice and informal, just employing what we're doing in everything we do. Not in a rigid way, but just experimenting in this way. So anyway, let's sit for another 15 minutes or so. And I'll endeavour to say even less than I've said before. And get a few minutes peace and quiet. Compose the body, set the body up. Settle down, scan the body perhaps. Pick up the meditation object. it seems that there are two aspects of this thing called mindfulness. There's something we do, and there's something that there is. And the doing is what we've been doing this evening. Obviously, we've been doing something, sitting and noticing what's going on in the mind, the breath, letting go of it. We've been mindful of everything that comes into sense consciousness, all the sensations and the sounds and the thoughts. That's what we've been doing, noticing and then letting go. And in this process, there's a sort of a shift. It's like, the doing bit is sowing seeds, and then as we keep on doing it, a certain blossoming in the way we experience awareness. And so the shift, there's a shift in perspective, it seems to me. So I'm practicing mindfulness. Okay. But there's a shift in perspective, moves from that, something I'm doing, to something that there is. As I let go of the contents of the mind, I begin to enable the mind itself to open up into its natural expansiveness, its emptiness. I think that's what this practice is all about. And sometimes teachers will say things like, mindfulness is something that's there all the time. You don't have to do anything, but the doing enables the access to what there is, the nature of the mind. I haven't, everybody can unmute if you'd like to and ask a real live question, or send something through the chat box, and nobody has since Meg went off on her birthday. Excuse me. Are there any questions? And to repeat, before you all disappear tonight, next week, the last meeting of this class before the summer break, Ajahn Barry Subhaddo will be teaching the class. Anyway, please fire away with any questions you have at all, or comments. As I say, you can unmute if you're not a sort of a typing, chatty sort of person.
Hello, hi Colin. I just received a question. Shall I read it to you?
Yeah, please.
So, is it a good idea to avoid noisy groups? I mean, people talking a lot. That makes me feel tired.
Yeah. Well, yes. Not when you say noisy groups. I don't know if I'm assuming you don't mean noisy groups of Buddhists, because we never make a noise. We're boringly quiet. Well, no, I'm joking. Well, yeah, it's exhausting, isn't it? It's quite exhausting if you're. I don't know. I mean, maybe people get a buzz out of a large group, and all the chatter that goes on. And it can be, I assume, quite fun. I mean, it's not for me. Maybe that's. I'm not even saying that. I'm not. It's like, if your hearing's not great, now again, I find myself speaking personally. If your hearing's not good and you're in a noisy group, you can't hear the person you want to hear. But exhausting is a good way of putting it. Yes, I find it quite, personally, I found it quite exhausting and quite draining. And yeah, trying to bring this back to this mindfulness log, this mindfulness practice, then the practice would be, for me, just noticing the exhaustion itself. Yeah, there's tiredness, there's fatigue, there's the stress of trying to follow what's going on. So that's, yeah. But I mean, I think it's quite a good idea to avoid noisy groups. I mean, unless you get an enormous buzz from them. Are there any other questions? Please feel free to either send them through to Lavinia, who is guarding the sense doors tonight, or directly through the chat box, or just sort of say hello or something. You can. Everybody can unmute, can't they, Lavinia?
Yes, they
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
I only have a follow-up to this same
Yes.
question, actually, which is saying that specifically they mean talking a lot, groups that talk a lot about conversational things or that are arguing, etc. And they say, I feel conversation can be quite tiring and take one away from feeling centered because people can make you feel angry or irritated.
Yeah, that's right. Well, of course. If you're in a group and you're discussing something, and there are lots of views and opinions floating around, it's very difficult to stay centered. That's a very good. That's a very good observation on social intercourse, isn't it? Really, it's quite difficult. That's quite a skill in just noticing confusion in one's own mind. Okay. What do we do about that? Interesting. Hearing, and then, as I say, often a situation like that, one might feel compelled to join in. Yeah, might do, which is okay. But I mean, it's exhausting and it's tiring. And if you find this sort of thing exhausting and tiring, then you'd want to step back from it. I mean, it's not a question of a sort of negativity, because you have to understand, I think we have to understand that people often enjoy these exchanges, and whether they should or should not get into debate and discourse and disagreement, that's something else. But we don't have to if we don't want to. It's quite okay, not to. It's quite okay not to get involved in that sort of thing. And I'm rather of that persuasion myself, actually. No. Any other thoughts on all of this, or anything else? Wow, still some people here. Huh?
Yeah, it's me that asked the question. It's about speech.
Sorry?
It's me that was asking the question. It's a situation that I'm facing at the moment.
Okay.
Like I go to a place, but I don't want to appear unfriendly, but people want to chat to me, but then they start talking about things that make afterwards, like I just sit there and like, I'm in such a peaceful place. I just don't want to talk, be asked these questions or join in with any of this.
Yeah.
You can come across as antisocial, but I've like it's about speech, really about utterance. That I've realized like not to take it that lightly.
Yeah. And everything you say is sensible. And I suppose one doesn't want to come across as being antisocial, but we're all different. I mean, some people like, as I say, getting into a noisy, they really enjoy it. But you don't have to. I don't have to. You can just kind of step back from that. And in a way, if people think you're being antisocial, that's their problem. It's like, I mean, there are ways of doing it, aren't there? You can just step away a little bit without appearing to be rude or anything like that. And if somebody wants your opinion and asks for it, give your opinion. But you're right, it's kind of a stressful situation. If we find it a stressful situation, then it'd be a good idea to avoid it. And speech is something that we all need to, I was going to say, keep an eye on.
Well, I think speech can be very hurtful.
Yes.
It can be very negative.
Yes.
So I just sometimes find like I'm in a really good space. I've gone somewhere just to relax and just be with nature, but people want to talk, or they see me and they want to socially engage.
Yes.
So the social engagement can be quite negative.
Could be. It could be. I mean, one of the interesting things of going on like a retreat at, for example, Amravati or anywhere else, I guess, is they encourage what they call noble silence. Now, noble silence is not stupid silence. So, if you're in the dorm and you smell smoke and see flames, it's quite okay to shout fire, fire, fire. That's not. But it's very interesting to notice the impulse just to talk, particularly at meal times. Actually, you're sitting at a table with other people, and yeah, it's like you just know if you're on a retreat in special circumstances, you just notice because you're in this noticing mode, and it helps that everybody else is as well. So it's like you notice there's impulse to speak, and there again it depends on what. If it's like, please pass the salt, that's okay. But as you say, if it's critical, just notice that. You don't have to engage in all of that. And you can develop a lot of mindfulness around speech, around skillfully talking. I mean, saying supportive things, quite okay to sort of say supportive comments, but engaging in a slanging match about something or somebody is probably not very helpful. It depends how one, makes one's critical comments. If you really disapprove of something, it's quite okay to say so in a reasonably calm tone of voice and give a few reasons, really. It's just, you think that really stinks, and you just say it really stinks. That's a bit brutal, a bit abrupt, but you say, I don't think that's quite right, and here's why. It's difficult for people to take offense at that, and if they do take offense at that, that's kind of their problem, isn't it? But no, you're absolutely right. You're right. I agree with you. Any other thoughts at all? By the way, I'm funny you should say this. I mean, I'm very much aware, kind of leading a class like this, how I have to be very careful about what I say. Because I have all sorts of opinions. In a situation like this, I keep them to myself. Anyway, any other questions or comments or anything like that? No? What are we doing? Well, I want to thank you very much for coming this evening and putting up with my rather hoarse voice and intermittent coughing. But that's the way it is. And I mean, it's quite interesting just to remember that, like for me, sitting meditation or in a class like this is, to be absolutely honest, it's not the sort of first thing I'd want to do. Meditate, it's much rather crash out. It's that sort of attitude. But you just notice that's just a feeling. That's just a feeling. That's negative feeling. That's aversion, right? And you notice that and you let go of that. And it's very helpful, actually, if you're not feeling great, to do a bit of mindfulness practice. I mean, this is what Ajahn Barry often comes back to. I think it's an Indian saying or something, but whoever started this makes a lot of sense. He says, well, we're born with this human body, and we, from a Buddhist point of view, that's what we wanted. We've got it, right? And bodies experience pain and discomfort and illness and all of that sort of thing. And it's like, do we want to make it worse by moaning about it, complaining about it, and all the negativity and not wanting it, or not? And this practice, I think, is quite helpful. Yeah, it doesn't feel great to, want to cough or having no energy or whatever, right? But we don't have to sort of sit here thinking, how long is it going to last? Is it going to get me through the weekend? All this sort of stuff. You don't have to do that. And it makes life is hard, life is tough, but this practice makes it go a little easier, I think, which is my opinion. And thank you very much from Elizabeth for, yeah, hoping I'm getting better soon. I certainly hope so too. Thank you for that. And thanks a lot for coming. Anybody else want to ask any questions? I really want to thank Lavinia for running the show tonight. Really appreciate that. I mean, I'm getting the impression, I was talking to Odin, who's the General Secretary of the Buddhist Society, earlier in the day, and it's like everybody's having a COVID sort of experience these days. And the Buddhist Society was trying to encourage people to come through the front door at 58 Eccleston Square, you see. But now we got to the point where, well, do we really want that? Just a rough old time at the moment. Anyway, look, I hope everybody stays well during the week, at least well enough to come along and hear Ajahn Barry here in a week's time. Thank you again, everybody. Take care.